Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, is the previous class still going on?
Sir, I've said to go. Some people are asking doubts.
Okay,
Good morning, sir.
okay, good morning.
Sir, I have a request. Sir, from next time onwards, can you increase the page limit for tutorial submissions? Sir, it was very difficult to cram it up into 2 pages.
Okay,
We
sure.
actually had a lot of content to write. We were wanting to write more. So I think that's why he's saying that.
Yeah, that's good to know. You want to write more. So yeah, so let me speak to the TAs, and yeah, we'll get back to you.
So I think they're actually aware, so you can have a talk with them once. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, also, I still couldn't cram it up into 2 pages, sir. Would that like result in marks deduction? Because it was very difficult. I just could do
Just
it
do your
up to
best.
3.
At least just do your best, whatever you can write. And because writing a kind of concrete thing, or you can say the very to the point, is also very
सर मैंने सारे वन
essential
लाइनर से
skills.
लिखे थे, टू द पॉइंट ही लिखे थे, फिर भी 3 ही पेजेस में वो हो पाया.
ठीक है, no issue. Yeah.
Good morning.
Okay, so let's get started. And so I have already shared with you. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can ask through the form I have shared. But surprising to see, no one has asked any questions so far. So I hope everything is clear to you, right? And yeah, so if you have questions, please try to utilize the feature, or you can say the facility we are giving to you. I mean, that will be hopefully useful to you. But again, I cannot force you. I can only provide the opportunity to help you, and rest is up to you.
So can you please repeat what you're talking about?
I'm talking about SCI ISCI doubt, right? I shared a form. Like if you have any questions, you can fill this form and ask questions, and the TS basically will help you, right? But
Okay,
what
sir.
I'm saying, so far no one has filled any form. So it indicates that everyone is clear, right? They don't have any questions at all.
Sir, at what time do you have your own office hours?
No. So what do you want to discuss, right? So in that case, firstly you can drop me an email,
Yes, sir.
right? So if I feel there is a lot of request for office hours, I can set up some office hours, right? But given the such a big class, my first request and suggestion would be, so first speak to the TAs, right? We already giving you tutorial and the consultation hour for TAs. If that is still unresolved from there, I mean, feel free to set up an office hours with me.
All right, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, good morning. Okay, so let me get started with the presentation. Okay, so good morning, everyone. So how many people are there? Okay, so close to 150. That's fine. We can get started. Okay, so I hope all of you are doing good. So as we have discussed in the previous 2 classes, right? We discussed about the double diamond process of interaction design, right? So we have discussed, like, as the first part, we have to discover, and then define, then we have to develop, and finally the deliver. So these 4 Ds are the part of double diamond interaction design process that we have. So we discussed that in the previous class. So we need to explore, like, what is the current user experience, and if you feel there is some issue or probably something which is lagging. So that's why, I mean, before you propose some changes to the existing way the people use some system, you need some justification why you need that change. And once you are making any change, then you also have to somehow justify, like, how this change is going to improve the situation. Because if you are going to make any change to the way existing system work, and if it is going to deteriorate the situation, then of course you're not going to use it, right? And there is because in a life we want to go forward rather than going back. at least in terms of user experience, at least in terms of feature and so on, right? So for example, people have started moving from a very traditional way of the way communicate. Now they are switching to basically the smartphone and probably the video calls and so on, right? So of course, I mean, we need to see what are the changes, whatever the changes that you made is kind of improving the situation. Can anybody give some example, a new example, so where how something is working in current user life, and can you highlight one issue, or you can say the some drawback of existing system, and so it's kind of justification of why do you need some change, and can you propose some change, and again, so you have to justify how it is going to improve the situation. Anybody want to answer this? Anybody want to give a try? So probably I can tell one example that has given in the book once you read the chapter 2. So one example which is given there, for example, while driving, often you need to take kind of right turn, left turn, or probably do something, right? So, and often at what speed you need to turn and something like that. So if you have some kind of VR kind of stuff that shows you, okay, so you need to take a right or probably left with the speed or something that display on your screen. So firstly, I mean, why do you need this change? Anybody want to comment? Because the existing way of user experience, right? It's like they simply take a call, whether they have to take right and how much right they need to take and so on. Like how much steering you need to turn right, how much steering you need to take the left and so on. So do you think, I mean, is there any need of a VR based thing? Anyone?
Sir, this thing already made.
Pallav, could you please tell again?
Yeah, sir, this thing is already made.
This thing is already made. Okay. Okay. So given that whatever the feature is already there in the VR, right? Can you think of something else you can add? Because there is nothing like, I mean, you have reached to 100% user experience level, and you don't need anything else, right? Otherwise, I mean, that will be a saturation point, and kind of everyone is fully satisfied with what they have. So for example, if I take your point, like, okay, so if the VR based thing is already there, what are the new change you can think of? Or probably what is the limitation of existing VR based direction navigator? Yes. Aditya?
Sir, sometimes under our cars, some animals are sleeping, so we don't know about them. So there can be a camera in the underside, so that after we start, it starts to beep, something like that.
Okay, so kind of you're saying it's more the visualization, not only in front, left to right, but also beneath the car, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Sparsh?
So not a VR, but we can have tires to move like in 180 degrees to avoid parallel parking and all that stuff. A car can move not just front and back, right and left also in the same way.
Yeah, very nice. Aditya, would you like to add something?
No, sorry, sir. I forgot to lower my hand.
No, it's okay. I mean, you can still answer something. Okay, so that's fine.
So my name is side.
Aryan, yeah, you want to say something?
Sir, there is no safety concern in the VR. We should work on the safety in the VR, that we are not aware of the surrounding when we are using VR. So there are some sensor that detect when something is very close to us.
So what is the safety concern you are referring to?
So surrounding.
surrounding. Okay. So, I mean, how many of you agree that, I mean, using VR may also cause distraction for the driver, right? Do you think this could be a case?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, in
Sir.
India, it is very difficult
Right.
because the
Can you
type of
repeat your
roads and the
question?
public.
Distraction, like, what do you mean by that?
No. So when I say the distraction, because where you will display your VR thing, probably the screen that you have, right? Or probably the you can say the wind. I mean the glass in front of you, right? I mean, if you're going to portray something on the glass, it probably if your VR in such a way, probably it is hiding the things in front of that, or probably the which is ahead of your car.
The vision of the driver. It will
Sorry?
hide that. And if we place the screen somewhere else, then driver have to see to the screen and then in the front, so it will be a distraction.
Yeah. So it also depends. I mean, there could be different kind of distraction. One distraction could be because firstly, technology is not solution to everything, and probably there are many people who are not technological friendly, right? So for example, I mean, again, there could be different ways you can place. So probably something may result in occlusion. So probably something may result in probably something else. So for example, if somehow the solution that you have built, right? I mean, what if it did not accurately compute whether you need to take right turn, left turn with this speed or probably this much angle, right? That may also basically cause an issue. So it means there is scope of improvement always, and you have to basically evaluate how much changes are required. And once you've done that, because often when we mention why a change is needed, we often have to look at what is the limitation or probably the existing problem that we face. And that is mainly the justification. That's why you need some kind of change. And once you decide the change, you need to provide a solution, right? So how this change improve the situation? So that you have to also evaluate and justify how or probably for what kind of user it is going to help, right? So yeah, so that is about exploration that we have also discussed previous classes. So it's a more kind of recap today. So articulating the problem space. So as we have also discussed, we need team effort because we need to involve different kind of people. We need to involve different stakeholders. So could you think of different stakeholder in this case, or probably if you are working on any problem? So for example, we are discussing about a VR based solution for a better driving, right? So what do you think? I mean, what all kind of stakeholder it will have? And before, let me go to stakeholder. So Aryan, you have some questions or something?
Could you please turn off your camera? There is some issue in the internet bandwidth.
Sure. Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I hope it's better. I have turned off my camera. So yeah, so we are discussing about different stakeholders. Can anybody answer what do you mean by stakeholder? Who are the stakeholders?
People who are affected by their product or the service.
People who are
affected by the product or the service that is being provided.
So only the people who are affected by, or someone else as well?
Also the people who are affected, like beneficiaries and all of them are also involved, investors, everybody.
The people who are going to use it and going to benefit from the product.
Only the benefit?
No, sir, the
involved in the design
going
process
to get
and
effective also.
The investors as well.
Yes, sir. Venture capital.
For example, sir, if we are testing a product based on VR driving, and if some mishap happens, then the people who are affected by that are also involved in it. So people who face repercussions of our actions also.
Right.
People who have a say in the product in any manner.
Any manner. Okay, very nice. Anyone else want to add something?
So anyhow, the people who are connected in any manner, whatever it be.
Very nice. Anyone else want to add something?
Investor, business person, producer, consumer, all these things, all these people.
The owner and the maker of the product.
Okay, very nice. Let me select some random name. Rakshit, would you like to add something? Okay, so let me find another lucky person. Sejal, would you like to add something?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
A stakeholder is anyone who is involved in the production or on both sides of the spectrum, like the people who are making it, who are involved in it financially, and the people who are going to be using it or are going to be affected by the use of it directly, indirectly. Does that sum everything up?
Yeah, it's very, very accurate actually. Yeah, so kind of stakeholder is someone who either affect or affected by, again, positively or negatively. It could be anything, right? So for example, we are talking about, VR-based driving car, right? So the stakeholder won't be only the person who is driving or probably sitting in the car, but it could also be the pedestrian. It could be the other fellow car driver, right? Even it will be the people who are developing it, right? For example, if product has failed, right? Who is going to negatively affected by that? Because if you put say $1 million or probably $1 billion in some product, right? And the product just failed. What will be the repulsion for that? The company is going to fire you. Probably it may be probably the firstly the people who have developed it, because end of the day it is not going to make business, right? Everything is kind of somehow related with the monetary benefit of any product or something, right? And similarly, it's kind of safety stuff. So it's kind of any kind of people, as you directly mentioned. It could be investor, it could be user, it could be probably the other fellow users, and anyone. Again, whether it's positively affected, uh, uh, negatively impacted, or probably directly, indirectly, and so on. I guess someone is raising hand. Anyone? Okay. So I hope it is clear. Yeah. So what the stakeholder is, who the stakeholder is, right? So can you highlight more stakeholder in this case? The example that we're discussing.
Sir, even the people who will like lose their job due to introduction of driverless cars, even they are stakeholders.
Sir,
Okay.
the car companies.
Could you repeat? Sorry.
The car companies, sir.
Okay, I could not understand clearly, but anyways, yeah. Anyone else?
So the people who provide financial aid in providing,
Yeah. So
buying cars.
that is kind of already included, right? Anything else that?
So every driver on the road, because if there is an error in how much you should turn or anything, if there's an accident, then the other party also gets involved. So they're also in some way a stakeholder.
So how about like some psychologist? How about do you think any? Including psychologist will be useful here? Anyone?
So what are you asking about?
Sorry.
So what are you asking about actually? There was some.
Can a psychologist could be in the team of kind of stakeholder?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How they are going to help?
Sir, like they can like tell us the way the users think probably, or the way
Right.
users perceive the product, something like that.
Right.
So that's why when we can use psychologist, like it can give us an idea around how we have to make the product so that users perceive it as useful and good.
Right. So if you look at the different kind of stakeholders that you involve is going to benefit you in differently, right? Some of them are kind of help you in testing as well. Some of you helping in terms of financing. Some of them are helping in the kind of building and all the stuff, right? Yes, you have any questions or comment?
Yes, sir. I was saying that as someone said that even the opponent or the person who will be affected will also be included in the stakeholder. So, sir, if there are two companies, say Zomato and Swiggy, and by the working and performance of Zomato, Swiggy is also affected. So, can we say that Swiggy is a stakeholder of Zomato?
Kind of very nice questions and tricky question, but in a way, if you look at, so here, I mean, you can say the competitor could also be a kind of stakeholder, right? Again, it's more like if you are performing very well, right? If the Zomato is performing very well, the Swiggy may probably negatively impacted because the number of people in the city will be the same, right?
Yes, sir.
And probably the equal number of people is going to order. I mean, the people who order are the same. Either they order from here or there.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, nice. So if you look at, I mean, in this way, I mean, understanding the problem space is also basically need to look at, right? Who are all the stakeholders, and also, I mean, as we have discussed, like what all the requirement they have, what all the possibilities could be there. And again, so all these we'll be discussing in the greater details in the upcoming lectures and so on. But I hope this has given you a good overview of what this problem space is, who are the stakeholders, and so on.
So if
we
we
also
are
need to explore.
talking about
Yeah.
stakeholders, can we include the government in the stakeholders part in the case of cars, for example?
Yeah, so they are making the rules, right? They are making the
Yeah.
policy. They are making the, say, fine, right? For example, speaking on the phone while driving is kind of may impose fine on you, right? Similarly, I mean, just crossing red light. I mean, in that case, you'll be fine, right? I mean, all those rules and the things are stuff are there. So when you are building your solution should be in such a way. Okay, so you need to alert user, right? Okay, so there is green light, probably you may go. There is yellow light, probably you may need to stop. And if it is red light, I mean, there is no other option, right? Something like that.
Like even during the designing of a car, they need to follow the regulations of the government.
Yeah. Yeah, because whatever the solution that you are providing, again, that has to work in the given constraint. So again, so that constraint again would be like the policy or the rules that you already have. You cannot go beyond the, I mean, you cannot go beyond the, you can say, the law of the land, right? And that you'll have to follow. Yeah, so similarly, I mean, often there is kind of incorrect assumption and unsupported claims. We have discussed some of them in the previous classes, right? So for example, given the driving example that we are considering, can anybody give me example of some incorrect assumption and unsupported claim?
Sir, that people like automatic gear. Well, the people feel that the manual gear is a burden. That
Okay, anybody else?
So like
in
women like pink colors more than any other color. Those are some certain claims that are made by the industry every single day.
So just think about, probably let's restrict your answer. Just think about the VR based stuff we are discussing about. So can you, suppose we are showing a VR based solution, right? Can you think of kind of what might be the incorrect assumption?
Yes, sir. It could be that the drivers will lose their jobs.
Okay.
There also that in India it won't be possible because of the haphazard traffic.
Sir, the road is not banked.
Okay. So how about, I mean, if you look at, I mean, the way people drive, probably in US, right? They probably, like in India, I mean, it's like always keep left, but they follow the right way, right? They follow to keep right. Again, the way you overtake, I mean, the way you overtake may be different in India than probably in US, right? Similarly, I mean, the people may have incorrect assumption in a way, like they are showing different colors or probably different objects or probably the different thing in VR, and maybe they assume, I mean, this is they like, or this is they understand, but they may have incorrect assumption, right? The people follow probably don't, because one assumption could be, I mean, that from the designer, you can show the same color or probably the same object anytime, but ideally it might be the case some colors may have better effect on user in night as compared to day, and vice versa, right? So there could be many other such things. So its idea is, I mean, you have to think a lot. You have to basically try to consider all possibilities, and that's why in the previous classes we have also discussed about you need to make different uh, test cases. You need to involve different test stakeholders, because involving different stakeholder will end you up with all the possibilities that you have to consider. I mean, at least because it may not be possible for the designer to have everything in their mind, and probably they can consider all the cases. So that's why we do a thorough testing before any product or something is launched to the people. So next thing we have also discussed in the previous lecture. So again, it's kind of quick recap. So expectation management and the ownership, we have discussed like the different user may have different stakeholder may have different expectations. So that's why there should be a person who perform the expectation management and probably set up some realistic expectation, both for say stakeholder, all kind of stakeholder, be it like a driver, be it like the car making company, or probably software company, or driver, and so on. Similarly, this help us in kind of no surprise, no disappointment kind of thing. So that we have also discussed in the previous class, and it also basically help you to communicate but not hype, so that the expectation is they are aware. Okay, so by this solution, probably this product we are able to achieve all this, but not something everything, right? Ownership we discussed about in the previous class is more about involving user in different phases, so that they feel ownership, like they are involved, they have contributed to this project, and based on their activity, the product has successful, and so on. So it's more like involving or probably providing the ownership to the different company have the different role for ownership, and that they involve real-time user on full-time and part-time basis. So degree of user involvement, so we have discussed in some details earlier. So we have to basically, the member of design team, user need to involve, either it could be full-time, part-time, short-term, long-term, depends on what type of solution that you are building and how much user involvement is required. So as we have also discussed in the previous class, some of the research shows that if user experience is the metric for the product success, right? In that case, I mean, you need to basically somehow reduce the user involvement, right? And similarly, if that is the only metric, so it depends on the type of product that you're building, the type of solution or services you are providing to user. You need to involve different user as part of the design team. Either it's a full-time, like you always take constant input from the user, but the drawback of such kind of thing, when you always involve a kind of member or user in a full-time basis, so often the user start behaving more like a designer rather than actual user, which his part was, right? Similarly, if you involve the user part-time, so since it is involved part-time, he often probably forget what he was doing, or probably what comment he has given earlier. So often the input is inconsistent, and it may be very stressful for the person as well, because he already doing something else and you involving part-time, and that may lead to something probably not a very good solution. But similarly, in short term, it's inconsistent across the project life, and long term is consistent but lose touch with the user, very similar to the full-time thing. So again, so it depends on what kind of product you are building. You need to involve user accordingly. But one thing is certain, I mean, you have to involve user. One thing is certain, you have to involve user again. So the level of or the degree of user involvement, that depends on problem to problem and system to system, and that requires a very careful consideration in order to take this decision. Similarly, face-to-face, group or individual activities, using that you can basically interact with different kind of stakeholders, users, and get to know about the user, how they use system, what are their requirements, and so on. Again, I mean, that also on the testing the prototype level as well, and this will also help you in basically choosing the different design alternative you have. So are you aware of any ways through which you can basically perform the design alternative? Anyone?
I didn't get your question. Could you please repeat?
Yes,
so my question is, so often you have given the design alternative, right? So how we can involve user, at what degree we can involve user in order to make the design alternative, like out of given say 1, 2 or 3 or whatever the design solution alternative that you have, which one finally to choose in the final product?
Sir, I think that it varies according to the kind of product you are building. For example, if you are building for people who are disabled, then if you are involving the user, the person who is disabled, his say will have a greater impact in the design process as compared to a designer for that instance, because the comfort or the way the disabled people will require that product will be more important. But when we compare it to a manufacturing of a product like a smartphone, it may vary because already there is a large amount of data available and they may be designing for a different target user base, but just for the sake of involving everybody, they might be involving people from all the areas. So for example, if company is not targeting certain features and if the user requires it, company may or may not choose to go forward with that part of the design process.
Yeah, so that's fine, but let me restrict it to probably, so for example, the target user is same. Suppose we are only talking about blind people, or probably we are only talking about normal people, right? So in that case, how the design alternative can be made?
So we can give solution to the users and ask them how would they have implemented it, and that way we can come up with different ideas from different thinking patterns, and then we would have multiple designs.
So we could also prototype different ideas and do small scale testing with the test group and gauge their reactions before moving it on to a large scale.
So very nice. So this is something, I mean, for a given task or given problem, you will provide two solutions to the user and you will ask which one they like, right?
So that totally depends on the product.
Right. So for time being, I mean, we have because again, so there are different constraints. So we have fixed the product, we have fixed the task, we have fixed the target user. So now we have probably a few you can say design alternatives. So as you rightly mentioned, so probably we can give two alternatives for the same thing to the user and we'll ask which one they prefer. So do anybody know what it is called?
The short-term degree of involvement.
No, involvement is fine. Involvement is fine. I mean, what is the name of this strategy in which we give two design alternatives to the user and ask
Where
which
is
one?
it? A/B, A/B.
A/B testing.
A/B testing, A/B testing.
Right. Yeah, it is called A/B testing, right? So where basically you give two options A and B, and the user select which one is better. Similarly, what if you have three options? What this will call?
A/B/C.
Okay, very nice. And in this way, you can basically increase it, right? Very nice. Similarly, I mean, if you look at online contribution from thousands of users, so you can collect the online feedback, crowdsource design ideas, citizen science, and a lot of things you can do. So user involvement after product release. So kind of A/B testing or probably alpha beta testing that you can do. And similarly, you can take the feedback from the user. So in this way, again, at different level of the or different life cycle of the different phases of the life cycle of the product, you can involve user at different level and get the feedback or probably understand requirement and perform the testing and so on. So why user-centered approach is important? So we have discussed in the previous lectures. So user-centered approach is based on early focus on the users and tasks. So that's why directly studying cognitive, behavioral, anthropometric, and attitudinal characteristics. So it's more about, yes, it's more about the psychology thing and so on. So we also focus on empirical measurement. So users' reactions and performance to scenarios, and manual simulation prototypes are observed, recorded, and analyzed. This way, basically, you can perform different empirical experiments to determine how the different design choice is going to help user, and that is based on not on just some guess, but also some, you can say, the empirical results which help you to make the decision. So iterative design when the problems are found in user testing. So because no one can probably come up with a, you can say, the 100% perfect solution. So often, and the reason being is that the designer don't know everything, right? He cannot think of all possibilities, the way product is going to be used, the way the product, all functionality should be there, and so on. So that's why often some cases where basically some bugs, or you can say the some issues were there in the system, and while testing the tester discovered, and even the user help in discovering that. So once it is highlighted, so you need to fix them. And after fixing, what you have to do you recall what we have discussed in last class? So you
Define,
found
develop.
Sorry.
So then we have to develop the prototype if we have discovered, or
yeah, so you fix them, and after fixing, if you recall, as I said, you need to perform all testing again. It's not like just this testing what issue you have fixed, because whatever the fixes that you have provided, that may affect other cases, right? So that's why often there are use cases, test cases, where basically you need to test out everything, right? So it means probably carry out more tests, and you can basically incorporate the bugs that you have found during the testing and release it again. Probably it requires several rounds of iteration. Once you finalize that there is probably no issue has been found, and now it is ready to launch. So there are 4 basic activities of interaction design. We have already discussed probably them again. So these 4 activities are, so discovering requirement, design alternative, prototyping alternative design, and evaluating product and its user experience throughout. So we have discussed this in previous class, so I just try to cover this so that we finish this chapter today. So yes, someone has any question?
Sir, can you explain user-centered again, sir? There is a problem.
No. So what I'm saying, so what is user-centered approach, right? If you recall in the previous lecture as well, we said in case of user-centered approach, you need to involve user so that you can understand. You can directly involve user at, say, early focus on user and task, so that you can fully understand what the user requirement is, right? What is their behavior is, how they use system, and so on. So early focus on user and task basically help you in directly studying the cognitive, behavioral, and anthropoformic and attitudinal characteristics, because so that when you provide the solution, you can provide the solution in such a way that is kind of consistent, or you can say related, or probably aligned with what the user behave. Similarly, empirical measurement that I'm talking about, we said, empirical measurement is more about performing different experiments. So that could be in terms of the performance to scenarios. It could be simulation. It could be prototype that you have created, and see how people are using it, how they are observed by the people, and recorded and probably analyzed. Because once you analyze, and probably the way your prototype has been mentioned, used, so you have some scientific justification if your proposed system is solving the problem at hand or not. If it is not able to solve probably some part of it, at least you have some empirical result to justify that, right? So for example, if you are talking about the driving car, right? So it shows that, your proposed system works well in the day, but it is not working well in night, right? It means you need some kind of iterative design to, and you found that it is working well in the day but not in the night. In that case, you need to fix them. And once you fix them, you need to do an iterative design to address out all the issues that you have discovered and propose the solution again. And again, you need to perform the experiment, empirical measurement, and design, iterative design to come up. This is the final solution that you have. And you need to keep doing it until until the user is satisfied, and probably it is aligned with the way user is using it, and whatever the feature which you have promised is meeting the criteria. Is this clear?
Sir, last one, sir, last one. Iterative design.
Sorry?
Sir, iterative design, sir. Like
Okay,
this, sir.
iterative design, what I'm saying, suppose you have proposed some system, right? And this system is in being used. But as what I have just said, I mean, when you are building some solution, it might be the case the solution that you have built is not 100% accurate, or it is not 100% up to the expectation that you had with the system. So for example, let me just give the driving car example again. So for example, if you have to make a right turn, right? But, and probably you need to take a right turn, say with 20 degree, but your system is suggesting take a right turn with 90 degree. That may lead to accident, right? In that case, probably you need to fix this. If I have to make a turn of 20 degree, then my system should be suggesting just take a turn of 20 degree rather than saying take a turn of 90 degree. So once you discover this issue, it means you have to fix this. And once you fix this, in that case, you need to go back the whole system that you have built again and think about now whether it is whether it has solved the issue it has or not, right? And you need to probably perform the whole testing again just to make sure the solution that you have given is not affected other functionality of the system, right? So for example, if you have to make a turn of 20 degree, in that case, probably the right indicator should buzz in, right? Rather than, or probably you can say earlier it was turning on right indicator, but it has stopped now due to your new fix. So what I'm saying, in case of iterative design, every time you have to iteratively take the feedback, you need to align whether it is meeting the user requirement, you need to perform the experiment, and finally, if you perform the testing, if some issues are there, you need to fix them, and you need to keep doing it in iterative manner so that the final solution is ready to be launched. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So there are 4 basic activities of interaction design as we have discussed in the previous classes. So let me go over that, and we have already discussed this earlier, so hopefully it shouldn't take much time. So one of the ways of simple interaction design is that it's kind of life cycle. You can see it's very similar to the double diamond, as you can see. So here basically you discover the requirement. So once you discover requirement, then you'll be kind of building the design alternatives. And again, so there might be different go forth and back, because there are different requirement, different solutions. So in this way, I mean, it go forth and back so that you have number of design alternative. Once you have the different design alternative, again, so you need to build a different prototype for the different design alternative that you have. And again, I mean, you need to go forth and back in order to come up with different solution. So once you have the working prototype, you need to evaluate it, right? You need to evaluate which one is better, which one is good, and so on. And again, while evaluating, you may need to you find some issue or something, or probably some requirement has been missed, or probably some new requirement has arisen while testing. Because again, when, for example, if you are reading a book, right, often you don't fully understand the thing, or probably you may not come up with all possible questions when you read for the first time. But once you keep reading it, probably some new questions or the new concept will be clear to you. So with the same intuition, so once you are going to evaluating different prototypes, so often probably you need to update the design alternative, or probably while evaluating you feel that, okay, so a new design alternative may be made, or probably new feature requirements are missing, so you need to add it. So in this way, this whole cycle keep on going until you finally come up with a final product. Like after evaluating all the design alternative prototypes, you found, so given options say A, B, and C, you finally end up with the solution C and launch as a product. So it's a very simple, similar to the earlier double diamond that we have. It's more exemplify a user-centered approach design. So where you involve user for discovery, requirement, design alternative, prototype, and evaluating.
Sir, design alternative means different products. Matlab, so there is one product, there are a number of products, then we choose prototype and
No, no.
then
So
we
design
evaluate.
alternative is means the product is one, because you can solve the same problem in several ways, right? So
Okay,
here, when
okay.
we say the design alternative is more like how you can solve the same problem in different ways, how the different design alternatives are there to solve the same thing in different manner. Okay. So another very simple and very similar life cycle model is Google Design Sprint, and that is being kind of used by the Google. In this way, what they have done, they say, okay, so let's come up with a kind of 5 days of design. We have to come up with a design which is ready to be used in just 5 days. In day one, they just unpack all the requirement. So when they unpack, there might be say several requirements. They just select the one which is say you will be able to complete in 5 days. After unpacking the requirement, you select the one and probably perform the sketch, or you can say the sketch and probably write down the things, how the sketches will solve the issue. Once you basically have the sketches, it means there might be several sketches for different design alternative, right? Very similar to the previous thing. So then you basically take all the decision which one to choose, right? Out of say 4 design alternatives, you have chosen the one. Once you decide, make that decision, you just implement the, or you can say the develop the prototype for the same. So once the prototype is ready, you need to test it. And in this way, at least in just 5 days time, you can say in one Google Design Sprint, you are able to basically come up with the first solution of the system. Again, as I said, you may not able to come up with the best solution in just 5 days, or probably not in just one iteration. You need to go over and over and over again in order to come up with a good solution that basically able to solve all the issues. So this is the way Google Design Sprint work, and I would suggest to read this part in book as well. They have discussed in more details. Another life cycle model is very similar to the previous two, is about uh, uh, research in the wild. In short, it is RITW. In RITW, what they does, so basically they have the technological solution. So they try to come up with different technology and see how the different everyday's in a everyday's life that you see the problem, how they can solve using the technology, right? So looking at it's more, you can say, the technology, and in situ study. In situ is more about the locally or the different problem that you have. So how you can solve the different uh, how you can solve different problem that you have in everyday's life, daily life, using the technology. And you need to basically need to find some theories behind that as well. If the technology is able to solve, then how it is working. Similarly, you need to come up with the design. So it is another in another research in the wild life cycle model, and that has been proposed by Rogers and Marshall. So I believe this might be a bit overwhelming at the moment. So you do not need to worry about this, but just try to understand the different life cycle you have. So whether it's a life, the simple interaction life cycle model that you have, or it's a double uh, diamond design that we have discussed. Similarly, whether it's a Google Design Sprint or be it like RITW life cycle that you have. So overall, the essence is same. Sorry?
Sir, why is it called as wild studies?
So wild is more because the way people use in daily life, right? Because when we say for example, it's a more phrase or term which has been used. So for example, LIRW some data set. So how the people speak in the wild. It's more like there is not any restriction, or probably the way people use in general, right? So that's why in situ studies is more related to wild, right? I mean, it's not a jungle. It's more like how it has been used in daily life, in everyday's life.
Sir, in C2 studies, how it depend on design?
How it depends on design,
Yes, sir.
because you have to look at, right, how people use it. How people use it. I mean, if technology has been introduced, you also have to look at, okay, so whether the people adopting that or not. If they're adopting, then how the way basically using it. So in a way, you also have to translate that back to the design, right? Probably if you introduce technology in the C2 studies, but technology, probably the technological intervention that you have made is kind of deteriorating the effect. It means that need to be go back to the design. Okay, so no, this is something, this technology may not be used. Probably there might be some other ways, and probably not this technology, but probably some other technology might be used. So that's why, I mean, you need to again go forth and back and probably use some other technology, and you need to make changes.
So the design is good or bad also.
Yeah, design could be good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Right. So similarly, so some practical issues that we have. So who are the users, right? What are the users' needs? How to generate alternative design? How to choose among alternatives? How to integrate interaction design activities and other life cycle model, right? So in a way, we have discussed all these points, right? Who are the user, who are the stakeholders, who are the users' need, I mean, what you have to solve, how to integrate, generate alternative design for a given problem, how you can come up with a number of solutions, how to choose among different alternatives if you have given the alternatives, and finally the integrate with the life cycle that you have and which one to follow. And often these life cycles are very much required because they help you to simplify the process. Because if you're going to solve a very complex problem, right, the complex problem may involve maybe hundreds of designer and the developers itself, right? Or probably the users may be at the scale of millions or billions, right? So unless you will not follow a standard way of or some process, ad hoc manner is going to kind of certainly going, the product is going to fail, right? So that's why you need to follow this. So
Sir,
for
can you
example,
explain the last point, how to integrate interaction design? Sir, that what
so
is the
how to
meaning?
integrate interaction design with design activities with the other life cycle model? So it's more like what I'm seeing here. Like, so suppose you have to follow the Google design sprint, how you translate or under whatever the problem that you have into different part it has, right? How to unpack the different requirements, what could be the sketches and the possible sketches of solutions, and then finally choose which one to uh, take among the different alternatives you have, and finally provide the prototypes and test. And again, you need to keep it doing. So it's more it depends on whatever you are taking. Suppose you're taking this, right? So you have to basically perform the discovering requirement, designing alternative, prototype evaluating, and so on. So it's more like, yeah, so how to integrate interaction design activities. So what 4 activities that we have discussed, right? So that like requirement gathering, or probably design alternative, selection, development, prototype, evaluation, and finally the delivery. So how you basically going to combine this? So who are the users and stakeholders? So as we have already discussed, what are the different user and stakeholder could be? Just to give an example. So often the different users and stakeholders that you can think of may not be that you probably thought about. So for example, in a study by Shah Zhao in 2016, they have proposed like there are in just 1 month interaction. Again, so it's just based on 1 month interaction, they found 382 distinct types of user for a smartphone apps. Can you think of, because if you have to ask, okay, so what are the different types of smartphone user you can think of? Probably you may say, probably one is physically challenged, one is probably old people, one is the young people, and many such ways, right? But can you come up with 382 distinct types? And or do you think the 382 is the complete set, or there could be many more?
There could be many more.
Right? So that's
Yeah,
why
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in 1 month they found 382. When he is supposed to try 2 months and this become more.
Yeah, this could be more. This could be more. Again, it depends on the different type of study they were doing, and again, different type of products they have, different types of application they have, right?
And different
So
type of
similarly, many
places
products
also.
are intended for use by large section of population. So when it is something for large section of population, you can say its user is everybody. So more targeted products are associated with specific roles. So for example, if you have VR based driving app, right? So in that case, I mean, uh, you need to test with the person who is sitting beside the probably the person who is driving. So both are kind of different type of user and different type of uh, features could be provided to them. Similarly, stakeholders, so we already discussed about this. So there could be stakeholders larger than in group of studies. Again, the stakeholders are not limited to individual. Stakeholder could be a group as well, right? So identifying stakeholder helps identifying user groups to include in interaction design activities. So what are the user needs? So again, even user don't know what they need. So are you agree with this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Can
sir.
anybody give example? Again, so suppose we are talking about smartphone. Can anybody or smartphone or TV or something? Can you give some example?
Sir, like if 10 years ago you told people that we had those Nokia phones, right? So like if you
Very
told
nice.
them that we'll invent a smartphone, we'd probably not buy it because we wouldn't believe that it's possible at that time.
Very nice.
Now
Very nice.
everyone is using it. So
Very nice. Very nice. Similarly, you can think of so what is the possibility of in that, because often user don't know what is possible. So as a designer, what do you think, I mean, can be made, can you simplify it? So do you think it will be easier or simpler if we come up with solution and ask rather than asking user what do you need, what if I come up with say a number of features and ask, do you want this, do you want that, and so on? Do you
Sir,
think the latter is better?
Sir, I think there should be a balance between these two.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, so
sometimes when we invent new technology, then they have to come up with the idea of our own as a
yeah, very
designer.
nice, very
But
nice. Yeah,
yeah,
very good answer. So yeah, definitely there should be a trade-off among those. So as I said, definitely earlier part is mainly focusing on asking user themselves, but the people have realized again just asking is not everything, because even the user don't know what they are expecting. In that case, designer or probably the people also need to come up with additional, you can say, the features, or probably something like, okay, so if we are going to build this, will you use it? So for example, when Netflix has been launched, so probably it is only limited to the television. All right, so later, I mean, say the user may have asked, okay, so would you prefer to have, or would you like to have Netflix in the phone, or probably something like that, right? So in this way, I mean, yeah, so that should be a trade-off, and that basically help you to understand user needs. So it's more like explore the problem space, investigate who are the user, investigate user activities to see what can be improved, and try out ideas with potential users. So focus on the people's goal, usability, and user experience goal, rather than expect stakeholder to articulate requirement, right? Because since you know the goal and problem, right? So you do not expect only the stakeholder to come up with the requirement. You can also propose requirement to the person and see whether it's useful or not. So how to generate alternatives? Yeah, so we have discussed a number of solutions earlier as well. So it's more about how do we alternative design come from. So it could be flair and creative. So again, based on the research and synthesis, it could be cross fertilization of the ideas from different perspectives. Can anybody comment on this? How do you get the ideas? So suppose if I ask you, I mean, how you can solve this particular problem. So how do you get any idea to solve that problem? What kind of innovative idea that comes to your mind? Anyone? And on what these ideas are based on? Are they always very novel? Are they completely the child of your brain? Or somehow it is also influenced by the other ideas, or you can say the other solutions that you have
So,
seen in the life.
like, I think that it is fairly variable and depends on the problem because, for instance, I can take inspiration from the failures of other products in the same scenario. I
Right.
can also think about a completely new idea based on my personal intuitions. And sometimes if I am the user, one of the user base of that particular product, I might try to figure out, like, this was something that I wanted in this product, but it was never introduced. How about I start my own endeavor, or I make my own product having this particular feature, so my whole idea or concept will be surrounded or be revolving around that inclusion of that particular thing that I've always wanted in that product.
Yeah,
So
very
it is
nice.
really variable in the process.
Very nice. So you can also think of often the ideas that you capture or probably take, or again, the not only idea, but also the successful and probably the failure stories or example that you see is often should not be related with the field or the area that you're working, right? So for example, if I have to give an example, right? So how the steam engine, so who did the invention of steam engine? Anyone?
Sir, is it James Watt?
Yeah. Yeah. So how did he invent it?
Yeah, he got an idea from electric kettle.
Electric kettle, sir.
Right. So kettle has nothing to do with the steam engine, at least, right? But he taken an idea how the steam work and probably throwing out the cap of the, you can say, the electric kettle, right? So it has some energy or something, right? So he applied some ideas from some other area to the problem he is working. So this is something you should always do, right? So whenever, again, it's not limited to only the textbook, but in any course or probably anything that you work. So my suggestion would be, often if you have to come up with solution, don't just restrict yourself to the area that you're working on. And often what people do, so they try to look at any aspect that is around them and see if you can relate this with the problem that you're working. What if you have to take a learning from this particular example that you have seen and apply here, and probably you can get it. So for example, earlier people working on, say, only social media analytics and so on, social media classification and other kind of problem they solve. Now people start applying the concept of physics in this. So for example, one of the student of IIIT Delhi, what he has done, he applied, say, the way the particle move, the way the different particles move around the world, right? I forgot the name of, the theory in physics. He tried to apply on the social media, how a news propagate, so what they have done, they compared an article with the news post, or you can say a post on Twitter, and how they propagate, how they move around, right? They apply the idea of physics and here, and this paper was one of the best paper in the conference, right? So again, so don't restrict yourself to probably only the domain you're working. So try to apply anything good that you have learned, anything bad that you have learned, and try to learn from that issue or the problem and try to avoid that in the solution that you're building. So just try to think out of the box. That is the key. Okay. So similarly, how to choose among different alternative things. We have already discussed about technicality, feasibility, A/B testing, quality threshold. So you can check more in the book. But I hope I have already given a kind of very generic overview about it. So how to integrate interaction design activities within the other models. So yeah, you have to basically look at integrating interaction design activities in lifecycle mode in form of discipline, require careful planning. So software development lifecycle that we have discussed are prominent. So you need to think about how you can relate it in the different parts of it, different phases of it, and integrate with the agile software design. So once you read the software engineering course in the later, probably in the next year course or something, you get to know more about this. So it might be a bit overwhelming at the moment, but don't worry about it. You will learn more. So idea is just to give you some overview and so on. So finally the summary is, so we have discussed 4 basic activities in interaction design process. So discovering requirement, designing alternative, prototypes, and evaluating. And again, so there are a lot of iteration that you see around this in different life cycle to come up with the final product. And user-centered design rests on the three principles, that is early focus on the user and task, empirical measurement using quantifiable and measurement usability criteria, and finally the iterative design. So with
So
this,
if we are adding a new feature in a thing, then it would come in design alternative or discovering requirement, like
discovering requirement, right? Because by evaluation you might come up or discovered a new requirement. So that's why, if you recall, so for example, looking here, so after evaluating you may come to new discovering requirement. Okay, so with this note, since we are running out of time, so I hope I have answered most of your questions. So feel free to use the sheet I have shared with you and ask more questions. So who will be presenting today? I will make the person as a co-host. Please let me your name.
Sir, group 2 1.
Please tell your name.
Sir, Abhik as Vasu.
Abhik as Vasu. Okay, so please start sharing your screen and presentation. Meanwhile, others who will be presenting? Other group, please tell your name.
Sir, Sahil Sahu, group 4_5.
Sahil Sahu.
Yes.
Okay, who is the other group member?
Other group
No,
one.
I mean, yeah, so who is the third group whom I need to make the co-host? So do we only have 2 groups today for presentation? Who is the third group? So I can hear you. So Digvijay, is that you?
Sir, group 7-9.
Name?
Sir, Sarthak Gambhir.
Sarthak Gambhir. Okay, great. Okay, so
Sir,
let's start.
make Chaudhary Digvijay the co-host. He has the PPT.
Sure. Okay, so please get started. Thank you so much. And please don't take more than 10 minutes. Try to wrap up in less than 10 minutes. Yeah, so please go ahead. Thanks.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt in A/B typing below part. So below topic, A/B part, below topic. So can
That we'll
I
discuss later. So let's go with the presentation. We are running out of time.
Okay, sir.
Sir, should we start?
Yes, Abhik, please start.
Okay, sir.
Very nice UI. Carry on.
Yeah, a very good morning to all. This is group 2_1, and today we are going to present on the topic PS5 controller. First, let us take a look at the evolution of joysticks in general and gaming remotes generally. The last one that you see is probably one of the most recognizable to all the gaming enthusiasts or people in general. And today, in 2021, we have these two as main consoles, the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Now, this has been a debate that has been concerning almost every Gen Z kid ever or a gamer, that which one is better? Is it the Xbox or the PlayStation? Here you can see a snippet from a show called South Park, where a fight has happened between two friends only because of the console. So today we will tell you why is it that the PS5 is a better console than the Xbox Series X, and I completely believe that it's only because of the remote. So first, let us see that why have we chosen the PS5 remote? According to us, the true essence of a console is its remote. The more intuitive the features of the remote are, the more the sales of the console is. We have a human interacting with the console on a monitor, all because of the remote. Hence, remote is the most important part and a very crucial HCI device in today's generation of gaming.
Let us talk a little about the design of the PS5. It has been ergonomically designed and has a minimalist approach as far as color choice is concerned, going with a black-white hybrid for a remote, as it can be seen from the meme showing. Apart from that, a new share button has been added, which today is crucial not just for people in the streaming business, but in general for any player who wants to record a memorable kill on Fortnite or a screamer of a goal on FIFA. Apart from that, the trigger angle has been changed for the better gameplay, and textured grip has been added all throughout the remote, which has a use which we will tell later.
Now we see the user experience and the interaction design of the PS5 remote, which is the domain where PS5 has brought about some revolutionary changes into their current generation of remote. It has new haptic feedback, new adaptive triggers, and inbuilt mic about which we'll talk in lot of detail soon. Apart from the textured grips on the trigger have been added as can be seen in the slide, which help prevent people hand from slipping in those tense battle royale encounters. And further, the general outline of the controller has been minimized to help smaller hands feel more comfortable while holding it.
Now, next gen gaming is something which has been the aim of every game lately, be it Cyberpunk 2077 or some other game. But to get this next gen feeling, we need to have a device which can make us feel these next gen games. And PS5 with the help of its remote is the perfect device for it. It provides an immersive experience and extracts us from our surroundings and provides one with fruitful experience of his or her own game.
Sony has added haptic feedback to its new PS5 controller that makes you feel the environment with adaptive triggers that provide tension when you're drawing a bow or pulling a cord using a specially geared motor. As we can see in the video, the motors in the PS5 controllers have been changed compared to the previous controllers to enhance and improve the haptic feedback feature. Some players might not want to use these features for reasons like high consumption of battery life or simply because they prefer playing without them. Making use of these features is always a choice and they can be turned off from the settings menu in the accessories section.
Now let us talk about the new adaptive triggers, the one of the main headliner features of the PS5 remote. The new adaptive triggers offer levels of resistance while gaming. Now one can not only feel the tension before firing an arrow, but also differentiate between the feel of a machine gun and a shotgun. In games like NBA 2K21 and FIFA 21, the adaptive triggers will change as the player's energy gets drained. Like if suppose we are in the 80th minute of the football game, it will add more resistance to the sprint trigger. In games like Fortnite, haptic feedback will make triggers feel different for every gun. In the game Deathloop, the trigger will even get blocked when the gun gets jammed. All these features add to the immersion of the gaming experience. Here we can see the trigger mechanism, like how exactly is it that the trigger
The
works.
trigger in its normal state, you pull it and it just goes in, right? There's some tension, but it's a regular trigger. But Sony has this other mechanism in here. It's this motor or actuator thing that has a corkscrew. And when you don't run a current through this motor, it's the same kind of feeling, right? It feels just like a regular trigger button. But when you do run a current through that motor, that corkscrew thing now has a little bit of resistance. So when you pull that trigger, now there's tension on your pull and it feels so cool.
Right, the built-in mic. The DualSense mic is surprisingly good at sensing when you are talking, when your TV is making noise, it will attempt to filter out the latter. Simplest way to mute the mic on the PS5 DualSense is to simply rest in the center of controller. Next slide. The possible improvement in the controller. First is the touchpad. Touchpad makes it cool and attractive controller for sure, but there is actually no necessity of it on the controller. Generally, no one cares to use it. Second is the drift stick is a very common problem seen in PS4 as well as in PS5 controller. Stick drifting means it disturbs your point of view in the game. Every time you have to reset the controller settings to stop the stick drifting. In place of stick, it should be more preferable to use raised buttons. And the muffled sound are experienced by many users. To stop the muffled sound, the player has to go to settings and enable the 3D audio to stop the muffled sound. 3D audio gives a better UX user experience, but it also reduces the performance of by consuming too much battery and leads to short battery life. Thank you.
So hence we can say, like, I have gone through a lot of YouTube comment section and it says that next gen gaming has truly been achieved by this PS5 and it is only because of the controller. And with that, we'd like to thank everyone. We'd like to thank our Rajiv sir for providing us with this opportunity to present here today, and to all my dear classmates who have been patiently listening to our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, very nice. So you may think of more how you can make it accessible, or probably whatever the missing features are there. But that's a nice presentation. So okay, so who's the next group? Sarthak?
So next group is
Sahil?
yeah, my group.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I will start presenting. All right. So good morning, everybody. My name is Sahil, and today the group 4_5 is going to be presenting, and we will do our presentation on the topic of using QR codes in restaurants. So this is an existing system, and what we have done is we have analyzed how it's being used currently, and we have added some modifications of our own. So if you have gone to a restaurant recently, then you must have noticed that there's a QR code on the restaurant's tables. And using the QR code, you can scan it from your mobile phone's camera, and it will give you a notification, something like this. And using that, you get directed to a web page where you can view the restaurant's menu. So that is the system that is currently in place. And we will further discuss about this, and we will discuss our own modifications. So now I'll give over to Parmesh, who will be discussing the good design features of this idea. Over to you, Parmesh.
Yeah, hello everyone. As you all know, during this pandemic, everything is becoming online and contactless. So the implementation of QR codes in restaurants is safer than using actual physical menus. It provides us with quick service, and restaurant owners can update the menu easily and add special or remove unavailable items. The customers also have the option to download their bill as a PDF and also download the menu for future use. The restaurant can easily promote offers through this and can display pictures and description of the dishes for a better user experience. There can also be separate breakfast and dinner menus. Next slide, please. Here's an example of different menu for breakfast and dinner. Next slide. And here's an example of how it is implemented. Next slide, please. Now Mehul will talk about the usability of this. Over to you, Mehul.
Yeah, so about the usability aspect of this application, first of all, we need to look at how efficient or how productive this application will be. So in these COVID times, as Parmesh mentioned, it is contactless. And also in this application, you don't need to contact a waiter to give your order. You can easily choose your options in the application, and lesser steps are involved. So you don't need to wait for the waiter to come to your table and then give him the order, then he will convey it to the chef, and thus you can finish all of the tasks really quickly. Next slide. Yeah, so covering on the effectiveness part of this application. So to cover the effectiveness, we need to consider that what the customers actually want to achieve. So they want to look at the items that are available. They want to view the information on the menu, and they want to order food quickly. So this application will drastically reduce the number of steps and help them to achieve what they want really quickly. Next slide. So here we have three slides, the first three images. The first image is of a standard menu, which only lists the items available, and not really, and it's not very interactive to the user, or displays too much of information. Whereas on the next slide, we can see that you can easily add or subtract the items which you want in your bill. And in the third slide, you can also see that the application will also display the amount of time that the chef will take to make the dish and deliver it to you, and also the number of calories that the item will have. So it is very beneficial to people who are maybe in a hurry and they can choose the items accordingly, and also to the health conscious people who don't want to have have items which are high in calories. So it will cater to a wide variety of audience also. Okay, over to Hunar to discuss the accessibility part.
Yeah, hi everyone. Accessibility refers to the features that make an experience or an interactive product accessible to all. So, we will ensure accessibility by the following ways. First, creating a website instead of an app so that both the iOS and the Android users can use it. Second, QR codes of bigger sizes can be put up in front of restaurants for customers to view the menu from the outside itself. And third, in order to include a diverse population, customers can choose the language of the menu. Some drawbacks of our concept are that senior citizens, technologically impaired people, and the people who do not own a smartphone won't be able to use the website for ordering food. Next slide, please. Okay, so the left image is an example of a menu in multiple languages, and the right image is an example of the QR code installed outside a restaurant. So this was the accessibility features that we can include. Over to Harpreet.
Inclusiveness. To make the website cater to a much more diverse audience, it will include a speech recognition system which will compute all the orders on the go. This will help people who are old or visually impaired. Next slide, please. Thank you.
So this was our presentation.
Yeah, very nice. So could you comment, I mean, have you seen a conveyor belt based I mean the food serving restaurant?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So do you think, I mean, somehow you can integrate similar feature in order to somehow just make the order and get the food at your table? Because many times when do you think something like can be done here?
So conveyor belt, as far as I know, I have seen in sushi restaurants, in videos. So I guess for some foods, conveyor belts make sense to use because, I mean, for example, sushi. So sushi, you don't have to cook it, right? You just assemble it and then you keep it. So then in those cases, it makes a lot of sense. But then conveyor belts, I feel, is that it makes sense to use for a few items, and then other items which need to be served hot or always are there, it can be used. But yeah.
Also, sir, I feel that conveyor belts can only cater to a few people at a time. If you want to have a big restaurant, then then you want more tables, and all the chairs will not be able to. The conveyor belt will not be able to serve all of them at once. In our example, in our application, we can cater a larger can be applied in a larger restaurant also, I think.
Yeah, so I mean that's nice. I mean you can think of more. So have you also seen a kind of a restaurant where until your food is coming, right? So often there is a long waiting time. I mean, can you show some kind of VR or stuff, other stuff, food is coming prepared, and a number of stuff, a lot of animation you might have. I don't know if you have seen.
Yes, sir, that would be really nice. We can have something to make the customer aware that on what step the food is being prepared, so that they can have some feedback कि अच्छा अभी इसमें time लगेगा, so they can utilize that time or something like that.
Yeah, so not only utilize, but also you can somehow entertain the person, I would say. Somehow, I
Yes.
don't know how you can gamify this thing. You can think more about it. So it might be very interesting. Okay, so thank you. So probably we can go for the last group. So Digvijay, you may share your presentation.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
So, good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about and its features. So, starting off, Nikola Tesla born. Oh, sorry, that's wrong Tesla. Sorry. So, why was it made? Tesla was made to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. As petroleum is an exhaustible source of energy while also being harmful to the environment, cars and vehicles running on electricity are the future of the automobile industry. Uh, Tesla was also invented to prove that electric cars can be just as or even more efficient than cars running on petroleum/natural gas. Uh, Tesla also has a lot of also works on green energy. So Tesla has been influential in driving major automobile giants towards electric sector. It has been successful in minimizing the use of fossil fuels for transportation. Tesla is bringing sustainable and affordable energy solutions to communities around the world. It is a great initiative that will eventually play a big role in reducing global warming. Here's a picture showing the differences between Tesla Roadster and Bugatti Chiron, between their features, like the 0 to 60 miles per hour time, etc. This signifies that Tesla have proved that you don't need to compromise on performance to switch to electric. That electric cars can be just as good as fuel cars. So over to Sarthak.
Yes, next slide. Next slide, please. Autopilot. Autopilot provides safety to their customers. In the video to the left, can you please play the video? In this video, we can see how the autopilot saved this Tesla user from a possible accident, which could have been deadly. Next slide, please. Tesla cars also have a summon feature, which can maneuver your car in the parking lot with a remote access device. Can you please play the video? Dog hope in the chat. Next slide. Auto park feature. Our Tesla also comes with the auto park feature. This removes the burden of having to park the vehicle from the user's mind. Can you please the video? Please. Next slide, please. Over to Rajat.
Yeah, drawbacks like charging. The cars come with a charger that is installed on a wall at their home. Other than that, the car can be charged at charging station provided at different location in the city. As the cars are as of now only feasible to use in urban cities, traveling a long distance can be a headache. Being too frustrating. This type of car are not yet feasible to be used in second and third world countries such as India itself. Costly for the general public and availability of charging stations. Next slide. Door lock. The doors of this car can only be locked from the touch screen. This means that passenger cannot open the door in a case of emergency like a car crash. Conclusion that Tesla car have shown us the way forward from pollution causing
So I think there is a lag or something. I cannot hear anyone.
Yes, Rajat, it's not audible.
Anyways, you can just finalize it.
Yeah, so Tesla cars have shown us the way forward from pollution-causing cars that run on fossil fuel. It is better. It also performs better than those cars, which has helped Tesla gain the trust of the public in terms of effectiveness and efficiency. This means the public has accepted it with open arms as the future of the automobile industry.
So have you seen the have you seen the one electric car which Tata is going to launch or something, or at least they are working on?
Yes, sir.
So how about comparison with that?
We did not look through it, sir.
Sir, Tesla has a lot more features than the car that Tata is going to introduce, and they have a lot more experience in this field too.
Okay, yeah, but if you look at the price, right? I mean, you cannot. Again, there is a trade-off. But anyways, I think they still have to launch it, and it will take time. But anyways,
yes, sir, they are opening there.
Yeah, so you can think more about it. Okay, nice presentation, and thanks everyone. With this note, have a good week or probably weekend after some time. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
So feel free to ask questions with the form already shared with you. Okay, bye.